Peace and blessings, beloveds. This is Rina Sassy from Sukoon Holistics, and I would like to discuss with you today why we get sick, why we get acute illnesses, and why we get chronic illnesses. So let's start off right away by differentiating between the two. An acute illness is something that has a beginning and an end, and sometimes, not often, but sometimes that end results in death. And a chronic illness is a continuous illness. It never goes away, or it can go away and come back, like in the case of chronic coughs or seasonal allergies or something. So why do we get those different diseases? I'm discussing right now the metaphysics of health and disease. So this is a really nuanced and sort of complex understanding of laws that govern health and disease, but I'm going to try to simplify it as much as possible. And so as a general rule of thumb, the reason why we get acute diseases is so that we don't get chronic illnesses. It is a well-known fact that children who get acute diseases like colds and flus and the historical regular childhood diseases like chickenpox, measles, and mumps and whatever, they are less likely to develop chronic illnesses later in life if they've gotten those diseases. And the reason why is because the acute illness allows a teaching and a activation of the immune system's intelligence so that it learns to when it gets sick, how to get better, so that it does not keep disease in the body. The acute is an opportunity for the immune system to learn about itself and how to coexist with non-self entities. And it's also an opportunity for the immune system to release toxins in the body so that it does not keep disease in the body. And I'm going to break this down to you right now. So the immune system is a learning system that's interrelated and interconnected and interfunctioning with all other systems in our body and all other systems in the world around us. Nothing in nature, nothing in the universe exists in isolation. Nothing functions in a vacuum. Everything is working with other entities, other systems. Okay, so when we get an acute disease like a cold or a flu, we will often get a fever and some discharging. Discharging usually comes from, the mucous membranes, the upper respiratory or the GI system. Sometimes it comes from the skin. And the fever is an incredible innate biological medicine that we have been gifted with, because it teaches so much to the immune system and to all the other organs and systems in our bodies. So it increases our white blood cell count. It increases our T cell intelligence, right? Every time we get sick, our T cells are learning. The T cells are part of the innate immune system. They're not like antibodies, which is a one-sided, one-dimensional approach to the immune system and only part of the adaptive immune system. And also by getting a fever, our temperature is increased, which revitalizes and increases blood to our organs and our bodies and our systems in our bodies. And so the fever in itself is a medicine within us, an innate medicine within us. And then the discharging that our body goes through when we get sick is an opportunity for our body to release toxins so that we don't keep toxicity in our body. If we are not given the opportunity to get sick, then our immune systems don't learn how to get better. And we currently live in a world where the culture is that all symptoms are equal and all symptoms are bad, that they should not be happening. Any kind of pain or discomfort we feel, we shouldn't be feeling it. We are so entitled as human beings that we don't even want to experience our humanness, and our vulnerabilities as human beings. Part of being human, the whole thing about being human is that we're multi-dimensional beings. We're not one-dimensional beings. We're not here just to experience pleasure and comfort and fulfill all of our desires. We actually will not know pleasure and comfort unless we experience pain and discomfort. As an example, our fingers, our hands have infinite blessings and gifts within them, but we don't notice them really. We're not constantly aware and holding gratitude for these blessings unless we get a paper cut or unless we get an injury. And then we're like, oh, that pinky finger, I really need that pinky finger right now, right? So we can't actually know the fullness of our humanness, our humanity, unless we experience pain, unless we get sick sometimes and we divert from health. Then our bodies can actually know health. Then our minds can actually know health. And so if we live in a world that that are afraid of symptoms, any kind of symptoms is a pain, and a pain should be eradicated immediately. And so we have developed these paradigms and these models where we are, sterilizing the world around us. So we're suppressing, where there's so many ways that we're suppressing our immune system right now. We're sterilizing the world around us with these heavy chemicals that are destroying the biome and the virome. And you better believe that if they're able to destroy nature as beings of nature, that they're also destroying our bodies too. But we're also not being, the immune system is not being allowed to interface and interact with these non-self entities, which is what the immune system needs to do so that it can learn about the self, because the immune system's primary function is to determine who am I. And it can only learn who am I by interacting and interfacing with non-self entities. And so if we sterilize the world around us and we don't interact with other people's immune systems and other germs and microbes, then the immune system cannot learn how to differentiate and individuate. Also, when we get sick, we've been conditioned and we've been taught that whenever we feel the slightest sore throat or stuffiness or fever coming on, to stop that process, to suppress the process. And that is so damaging to our immune systems, because it's basically counterproductive to the immune system's intelligence. The immune system mounts these responses so that it can start learning who am I, and so that it can eliminate the non-self entities, discharge the toxins in our body, right? And so if we stop that process, we're basically saying, no, immune system, you got that wrong. You don't know what you're doing. Don't do that, right? We're not allowing our bodies to get the full, the benefit of the medicines of the fever and the discharging. And we're essentially blocking the learning of the immune system, okay? And that we're not allowing the immune system to learn who it is. And what happens when it doesn't learn who it is? Then it doesn't know who the non-self is. And that is why we have such an unprecedented level of chronic diseases these days, because our immune system are totally out of sorts. They don't know, they have lost their ability, they've lost their intelligence and their ability to differentiate and individuate. Look at the diseases that we have now, especially the diseases that can be directly correlated to the immune system, like autoimmunity, for example, allergies, these neurodegenerative diseases. So for example, the V model, the V injection model, which agitates the immune system only into for producing antibody production, does not complete the full learning of the immune system of the self, and of non-self, right? Because it's a very one-sided, one-dimensional model. It only sees the antibodies as the function of immunity, or that's what creates immunity, is antibodies. And that's not what creates immunity. That is part of the adaptive immune system, not part of the innate immune system. And it's only one aspect of the adaptive immune system. The innate immune system has many aspects to it, like the fever increases white blood cell count. It increases T cell intelligence. And it, like we mentioned, it revitalizes organs. Did I say this already? Anyway, so when we don't teach the immune system by suppressing it through all these chemicals around us, by the injections we're taking and the medications, the anti-inflammatories, the anti-fever, the anti-cold medications, we're basically stopping the immune system. We're stunting its growth. We're stunting its learning. And we have, increased numbers of autoimmunity. What is autoimmunity? It's the body attacking the self. When the immune system cannot recognize self and differentiate self from non-self, it will then attack itself. It will see the thyroid as non-self and attack itself, or the liver, or the muscles, or the bones, or the brain. And we get chronic illness. What is cancer? Cancer is one cell that mutates and takes over, metastasizes the rest of the cells. It colonizes the rest of the cells. If the immune system were functioning properly, it would see that the cancer cell is not a cell, is a non-self entity, and it would eliminate it rather than allowing it to take over the other cells, right? So these are all dysfunctions of the immune system. And as a result of the suppressive therapies or suppressive drugs and chemicals that we expose ourselves to and willingly take often. So my question now to you is, what happens when we suppress these acutes, and is it worth it? Is it worth it to suppress acute illnesses? These acute illnesses, these pains we're feeling, are messengers from the beyond, as our beloved Maulana Sayyidina Rumi Qaddasallahu Sirru says, the Sufi mystic, that these pains we feel are messengers from the beyond. What happens when we accept that these symptoms we feel are teachers, and rather than suppressing them, we support our immune system to learn from them. We support our immune system to engage its intelligence, to exercise its intelligence, right? I have many medicines for you guys to do that if you want to do that. And to avoid the suppressive therapies and drugs that we use because we're afraid of these pains. And is it worth it? Is it worth it to stop these acutes? Now in this historical moment, we have had an unprecedented response to what is now a seasonal endemic virus with a case fatality rate of 99.95%, I think, for people under the age of 70. So it's riskiest as usual, as most acutes are, to the elderly. Is it worth it what we're doing by isolating our immune systems, by suppressing our immune system, by not allowing it to get sick? Is it worth it for us, for our children? And then is it worth it for the elderly as well? Elderly people, historically, throughout millennia, usually die from acute illnesses. What they say die of old age was actually they would get a cold or a flu or a pneumonia and they would pass away. Is what we're doing to the elderly better than that? By trying to not any of us get sick, and then if they get sick, we lock them up in an isolated ward and put them on a ventilator and not allow their loved ones to be with them? Is it worth it? Because the flip side of that, of not getting an acute, is possibly living with a chronic disease like dementia. I just saw the movie The Father with Anthony Hopkins the other day, and it's about an elderly man suffering from dementia. It's real suffering. I just established that these chronic diseases are a result of us not getting acute. So we're not we don't want to allow our elderly to die of these acutes, but then what? We'll allow them to live in suffering and dementia for decades, maybe? Is it worth it? is all of this worth it? Wouldn't it be better that we allow our elderly to die with whatever has to come? Isn't it better that they die with their loved ones surrounding them, holding them as they pass to the other side, than to be so afraid of pain and disease that we've done what we're